The Guelph Chamber of Commerce continues to have important dialogues with key policymakers who influence our business climate. We know that now more than ever, we must elevate our efforts as an organization and as a network of businesses so that we not only help our members survive, but in fact thrive out of the pandemic. With the generous support of CN Rail, we plan to share a handful of interviews with elected officials and key decision makers over the coming weeks, asking them to discuss important issues in their portfolios and reminding them it's no longer sufficient to have us only managed and consulted as stakeholders, but instead work with us as contributing partners in their efforts in our aims to foster inclusive economic prosperity. Today, I welcome Krista Walkey, General Manager, Planning and Building Services, and John Regan, General Manager, Economic Development and Tourism at the City of Guelph. Hello, Krista and John. Thank you both for joining me and having this conversation. I think it's an important one and a timely one for our community. And I'm ready to jump into some questions if you're both okay to get started. And we'll keep it easy off the top. I think it would be helpful to our membership to know and understand how you explain the primary mandate of your department and what role you play in ensuring your department's success. Krista, perhaps to you first.
Well, good morning, Shakiba, and welcome everyone. So my name is Krista Walkey, and I am the General Manager of Planning and Building Services. So in that group, we have a very diverse group. So we have building services that does permitting, inspections, and provides zoning opinions. We also have development planning that processes site plan applications, development applications, which are subdivisions and zoning amendments and official plan amendments and condominiums. And then we have our policy group, which is urban design, landscape architecture, environmental planning, and then the long-range policy forecast for the City of Guelph. So we do have a very diverse group of staff in planning and building services.
Thanks, John. To you.
Well, thank you very much, Shakiba, and thanks for having us on today, and welcome everyone who's joining us. I'm John Regan. I'm the General Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, and I've been with the city almost just about 6 months now. And so our mandate in economic development is really about building partnerships, engaging the community, facilitating. Quite often people ask, what do we do? I respond with, we connect the dots. Literally, if you boil it right down, it's about connecting people with people, businesses with businesses, businesses to finance and technology. And we have the experts that have those connections and can really assist. We're also mandated. We have some industrial lands, as you know, and employment lands. And so facilitating those land sales, looking at how we attract and literally attracting investment to the city of Guelph and making sure that we're attracting the right investment to the city of Guelph as well. Along with that comes destination development. So that tourism piece is very important. And everything what we do, we are so closely knit with every other department in the city of Guelph. And so everything we do is about quality of life and quality of place. So I think that's a very important role that we do as well. Really at the end, one of our main key performance indicators for our department really is about increased assessment of commercial and industrial properties. So having that's kind of our check mark. Hey, are we doing a good job or not? And because that's what we want to be able to do is increase assessment. And of course, as I mentioned, relationship building, and then also working with our key stakeholders to create an environment for innovation through supports through our department and through all the other city departments.
Excellent. Thank you. So now, one thing of note that's interesting is that you're both relatively new to your roles. So I'm curious, what is your personal vision for your department? With your fresh eyes in mind, where have you identified areas of improvement in terms of the outcomes that you hope to achieve through your work? Krista, maybe back to you.
Thanks, Shakiba. So absolutely, yes. I've been at the city for 6 months now, so very new to planning in the city of Guelph, but have been in the industry for over 20 years. So I'm hoping that I can bring some of that experience to the city of Guelph as well. And in my role, how do we plan and create and grow a community that's people-oriented, full of essential amenities, has walkable neighborhoods, and thriving community hubs and interconnected transportation work. So how do we bring it all together to create the city of Guelph? Absolutely, we're looking at efficiencies. It's part of continuous improvement, which I fully believe in and support and try to advance every day. So looking at improvements in our site plan process and our development application process. We have lots of improvements going on in the building department as well. And we have some really big policy projects that are underway. So we have our municipal comprehensive review, which is our official plan update, and how do we grow to 2051? So that's a big question in front of the city right now. It's not just planning staff, but it's a citywide endeavor on how we grow to 2051. And we also have some neighborhoods and communities that are underway as well. So we have the Clare Maltby secondary plan that we're working on and is part of a large engagement process. So a lot of exciting work coming out in 2021, and looking how to do it better and how to achieve the long-term vision and growth for Guelph as well.
Thanks, Krista. How about you, John?
Thanks, Shakiba. And kind of to echo what Krista just said, which is so true, that we really live this continuous improvement process in City Hall for sure. And you know, we're still in pandemic, and we're not sure when we're going to come out of that. But I think most of us hope we're not returning to normal. I think we're all hoping that we're returning to something better. And so we do have a close New World lens, if you will, on, I think, in every city department as to how are we going to improve upon what we know. From my perspective on our department and the vision that I have is, first of all, we restructured. So we used to be called Business Development and Enterprise, and simply was just economic development, and then also Guelph Junction Railway. And shortly after I started, we merged economic development and tourism together and Guelph Junction Railway. So we have new teams, we have new staff, and so building that team is really kind of that area for, I don't want necessarily improvement, because I don't think anything was necessarily broken, but it gives us an opportunity to create a brand new team. And so the restructuring, making sure that we have all the right people and all the right places with all the right qualifications is so important. Making sure that we have our bases covered. And for an example, we did not have a dedicated person for investment attraction, land sales, and real estate. And with council's vision, they gave us that position, and the vision of our CAO and DCAO, of course. And so we have that position, and we're in the process of filling it so that we can make sure that we're running as a complete economic development and tourism department within the city. One of our goals that we really want to achieve this year, and we have started, is the development of our strategic plan, which is for economic development, tourism, and Guelph Junction Railway. So very excited about that. I think that plan and all the engagement we're going to do is really going to inform kind of this new world and how we can make continuous improvement in not only economic development, but throughout.
It's an excellent point. I know that many businesses, all businesses know that there is no back to normal, and there is a new normal that we're developing, and hopefully working collaboratively and collectively together for something greater and better. So it's good to hear that notion is in mind for both of you, and that hopefully there's opportunities for us to really update and improve some of those processes so that we can really come out of this stronger as a community. So I'm curious then, to what degree does planning and economic development work together? And I'm curious, I know it's early days for both of you, but have you identified different ways to be working together better?
So do you want me to lead off, Krista?
Yeah. Sure, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying I've never had such a close relationship with the planning department in my entire career in economic development. Quite often, economic development and planning aren't necessarily on the same path, and I can't I can't say that's true here with Guelph. I feel in the short time that we've had a great relationship. We have a great relationship with planning, with actually all of Krista's department, and I'll also say with our other departments as well. It is such an awesome place to work. It really is. And Scott Stewart always refers to, kind of silo busting, and it is so true. This is so refreshing for me is that we do have a great relationship with planning, and my staff have great relationships with Krista's planning staff and building staff. So anyways, I've rambled there. So back to you, Krista.
To John's point, I think, we are very intertwined and connected. And certainly if we, what we do in the policy end impacts the, the long-term economic development goals of the city. So how can we work together? And I think that's really important. And having those relationships and be able to have these casual conversations with each other really advances the goals and the objectives of the city. So, part of our strategic plan is, working together for our future. And I think both, John's staff and our staff are working together on that. There's a building partnerships committee, which one of John's managers and one of my managers, we co-chair the committee. And I think that shows the relationship between the two groups, that we actually co-chair committees because it's that important to the community and to the city that we work together. So, on that, we're working together. I think, as John mentioned earlier, COVID and what is going to be the new normal, but I think we've also learned how important it is to be digital and flexible. And, through this entire pandemic, we've had to, talk differently and relate differently and advance projects differently. And I think we're working really well to get that done and advance the goals of the city. So economic development and planning and building services, we really need to work together to advance the goals of the city. And, I think with John's leadership and his desires for the group and for us working together, we're really going to try to push that forward and make sure that we're talking and connecting on every issue going forward.
I mean, that's great to hear. And to John's point, that often isn't necessarily always the case in a community. And I think it is, really important that there's that strong connection and that there's consideration in planning and policy to think about the business community and the needs of economic development, foundational imperatives when making decisions. So it's nice to know that there's a strong line of communication, and hopefully it continues to strengthen as you both develop your plans. So I'm hoping to jump into some planning and land use questions that came forward from our membership. And generally, what we're realizing is that planning and land use decision-making processes that occur in Guelph and other municipalities are quite prescribed, either by provincial policy, provincial legislation. There is often, though, in Guelph especially, a desire to retain our unique Guelphiness, if that can be a word that we use. That this is a different place, a community like no other. But I'm wondering, if we're honest, is it possible to do that, to maintain that uniqueness that everyone wants when we are prescribed to a planning process and an official plan content that's considered a bit cookie cutter?
Thanks, Shakiba. I think that's a really good question, and 2021 is the perfect year to answer that question. So we're moving forward with our municipal comprehensive review, so the overall update to the city of Guelph and what we're planning to 2051. So yes, the province does set our high-level policies, such as the growth plan numbers, our population numbers to 2021, which 203,000 residential folks. So that is set by the province, but it's up to us on how we grow, where we grow, and what our community looks like. So on all of our teams that are implementing the master plans and the updates to that, we do have the broad spectrum of staff across the organization. For example, John's team sits on our employment capacity review and where that's going. We sit on the transportation master plan updates as a whole, both our groups on what our road network is going to look like and where it's going to go. So the province does set up the high level policies, but it's up to us to implement Guelph specific policies. So, and it comes down to our official plan, our zoning bylaw, what our setbacks are, what our buildings look like, and then our urban design guidelines as well. So what do our streetscapes look like? What are how many trees do we want? So we, the province sets the numbers, but we design what the community looks and feels like. So working together to do that. And I think it's, really important. I'm also going to do a little bit of plug for Have Your Say Guelph. So right now, as we're working through 2021 on a lot of master plans that are going to input into how we grow and what we look like, on Have Your Say Guelph, we have a lot of surveys up. Right now, the Transportation Master Plan survey is up. So people have an opportunity to comment on that, and that is going to help design the future Guelph. So I really encourage everyone to keep an eye on Have Your Say Guelph throughout 2021 and provide your comments, because it really does have an impact onto what Guelph looks like.
I'm glad you've flagged that there is opportunity to always have your say, and that it is important for folks to contribute to that. But I'm wondering, Krista, do you ever feel challenged, you personally, the department, the city, between the ideas and preconceived notions of what we think our community should look and feel like, and what might actually be best based on evidence, based on projections and trajectory?
If we're challenged, but sometimes we can provide, best case examples from other provinces, other places in the world, and share that as part of our engagement opportunities. But we really need the feedback from the community on what's important to them, and something that works in another municipality may or may not be important to someone in Guelph. So we can certainly share best practices from other municipalities, but we really want to create what's important to Guelph, and Guelph is unique and has its own community desires, and it's our job to gather that information and really put it forward into policy.
Fair enough. So now, in accordance with the Places to Grow and the Downtown Secondary Plan, the Baker Street project initially involved quite a robust vision that brought jobs, residential and commercial opportunities, as well as educational, recreational activities to the downtown core. Curious a little bit about this, because it seems to have been scaled down to a new library and some condominiums. I'm wondering if you can explain briefly what happened to the original vision for this very prime piece of real estate. Which department is taking the lead on the Baker Street redevelopment project? And how do you see both planning and economic development working together to ensure the best possible outcome as we move forward? So a lot of questions there, but I'll pass it on to both of you to discuss, the direction of that. Perhaps, John, to you first.
Sure. I want to make one comment about the previous question first,
Yes.
if I can, Shakiba, because you talked about the Guelphiness, and that is so cool for Guelph to have that. And some of the other pieces that we use to maintain that Guelphiness is through our cultural department, and also through economic development and tourism. And so it's about culture as well. And as long as we maintain that, I think we have a really strong foothold in maintaining our Guelphiness. Anyways, I wasn't dodging your current question at all. Yeah, so I'll take a stab at this, and then Krista can fill in some gaps if she likes. So the Baker project does involve many different departments. In fact, every department I think is involved. Primarily, it does actually sit in the economic development and tourism wheelhouse. However, having said that, it is really being led by finance, facilities, for example, planning's involved, energy, legal, parking. All these departments are heavily involved. It is a multidisciplinary project that needs input from a lot of different areas to be successful. So Baker District has gone through some fine tuning over the years, but the original vision for the site is still very much intact, I feel, and I think most people do. The site was always to include the new library and several residential towers. There's still space available, or the intent was to have some institutional space available, but as you can imagine, in this environment, the ability to attract, let's say, community colleges is maybe not on their radar as much as it was on ours. So there still may be some possibilities for that, but because of the global economic situation, there's very little interest at that time, and rightfully so, right? Because we just talked earlier about, we're going to come out of this with continuous improvement. We're going to come out of this with some better ideas and use for space. So we're hoping that we'll be able to accommodate some interest in the future. But right now, the layout of the site has changed in the last few months, as everybody is familiar with. But really, the vision and the original objectives are the same in our opinion, anyways, for sure. And it's going to be an awesome development. It is really going to revitalize that area of downtown.
Any thoughts about how to incentivize or really champion the commercial opportunity and the employment opportunity for downtown through this project?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Krista, did you want to, or do you want me to keep?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, thanks. So when you talk about incentive, are you referring to like a CIP program, like a community improvement plan? Or
you tell me, John. Yeah, I mean,
sure,
a community improvement plan for sure. Or, you know,
absolutely.
how do we make this a place that we want business to come to and see
Oh,
an
absolutely.
opportunity?
So there's going to be, so there is public, there's two public squares, if you will, right? There's going to be a public square in the library, and then also one out where the condominiums are. And so it is all going to be very well connected. So we see, you know, maybe it's art in those parks. Maybe it's musicians, entertainment, you know, buskers. We see it being a culturally active place. We see some commercial within that development. We're hoping to, with this development, inspire surrounding property owners, because when somebody paints their house down your street, you know, quite often it triggers everybody else painting their house or putting a garden in or something, right? And that will happen, and it will happen primarily a lot on its own too. And if we can provide some incentive, which hasn't been really approved or any official plan yet, but if we can, then I think that's a great opportunity for us as well. So it is going to bring a lot more people to the downtown core, and those people are going to shop downtown and spend money downtown and live downtown. And so that's going to have a significant impact on the downtown economy as well. And if you have a healthy downtown, we all know that the city has a pretty healthy heartbeat anyways, and this is just going to strengthen that heartbeat.
Thanks,
Back to you, Krista.
No, and just, you know, just further to that, you know, there are the different groups, and not just planning and economic development, but, you know, engineering and parks and facilities and legal. We've all been working on this for a number of years, and have been working on the downtown as well. You know, the downtown streetscape plans and the downtown official plan policies. We're a little bit of a catalyst to this sort of development, and how do we create and bring more people to downtown. And, you know, I look at the population numbers and how to get people there and what the approvals and land use are, and then John kind of takes it and implements it. But we also have our engineering group, and we've just kicked off the downtown infrastructure renewal project, where we're, you know, looking at the underground services and how do we support growth and development in the city. So lots of work going on, not just on Baker Street, but on the entire downtown area, on how to make sure it grows and thrives moving forward.
That's great. Thanks. And certainly looking forward to the progress and the success that will bring for our downtown, and like John said, and therefore spread throughout the community as a whole. We were talking about this earlier. The Ontario Chamber has a policy resolution process that local chambers participate in, and the Guelph Chamber is currently working on a policy resolution for the Ontario Chamber, one that will make recommendations to government on how to reduce barriers and incentivize green builds. So the city of Guelph and council often favors net zero, low carbon building applications, which is great. They also ask for affordable housing and unit considerations. And sometimes these two requests, these items, are at odds with one another because the cost to a developer or home builder for each unit is quite substantial. Krista, I'm wondering your perspective on this.
So, you know, I'm not sure they're always necessarily at odds. I think, you know, between the two of them, it helps our community building. And certainly our council has supported both endeavors with, you know, pushing and wanting net zero by 2051, as well as, you know, stating publicly that affordable housing is important. We try to reach 30% of our units every year that are affordable. and we do an annual report on that just to monitor where we're at. So it's definitely occurring in Guelph, but it's not just Guelph that this is happening in. Even some of the largest corporations are planning to go to net zero by 2050 or earlier than that. So it's not something that's unique to Guelph, but it's something that is important to Guelph and how we grow our community and what we want our community to look like in the future. So we do have some really innovative housing builders in Guelph that are building net zero today, and they're offering it to individuals to buy, and there's definitely some take up on that. So I think the community, the whole is embracing net zero. And I know my house, I have solar panels on my roof, and so I support that as well. I think we're in year 6 of the solar panels. So I think it's, important for everyone to do what they can. And we do have builders in Guelph that are definitely supporting that. Affordable housing is a big topic and something that we, as the City of Guelph, work with the County of Wellington on. So the County of Wellington is our service provider for affordable housing, but obviously the city has a role in that. So making sure housing for all. And I'm happy to be part of the Guelph team that is promoting housing for all and making sure that we do have that capacity. And it's not just affordable housing, it's social housing, it's all different forms of housing that we're taking a look at, and how do we encourage that in Guelph as well to ensure we have housing for all.
Great, thanks. So on the note of low carbon and making good green choices where possible, I'm curious what your vision is for encouraging non-fossil fuel consuming modes of transportation. Is the city planning safe and well connected? Are the bike paths integrated? Are they designed to get people around effectively and not just for pleasure, for example?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start off on this one, John, but I kind of promoted the Have Your Say page on the City of Guelph webpage a little while ago, but it is really important, and I think it's something we're all taking a look at right now. So COVID has given us, maybe a heightened awareness of how important those interconnections are. The city has a parks master plan, we have a trails master plan, but I think with COVID, we've really realized how important those public amenities are to the citizens of Guelph. So our parks master plan is underway, our trails master plan is underway, and as well as the transportation master plan is underway. So all of that together, helps again create that community that allows people to get around in different modes of transportation. Even at council last night, we had an individual speak about the interconnectivity and the trails that were available in the ward as far as how to get people moving along, and why we can in that particular case support a reduced parking requirement for a development application. But it's taking a look at the city, the whole, and the neighborhoods, and how we interconnect, and to give people those different choices. So as we go through with our master plan updates, so we have a lot of master plans underway. I think it's one of the biggest endeavors we have going on right now. So we are all looking at the city and how we grow to 2051. So we're looking at all the individual components, but we're working together to see how do they fit and how do they work together. So transportation is the one that's out for public comment right now, the preferred solution, as well as the 4 options. And we really encourage people to comment because I think it is important going forward. The price of gas is going to rise again. It's been, low lately, but it's going to rise again. And we want to make sure those choices are there and that they're safe. So we want to have a safe way to get along through the city, and it might be on a bike or on a trail. So we're looking at all those different options to connect our city and how we move people through the city that don't necessarily then have to have a car or use a car.
John, with all of those master plans and interconnected layers of community planning happening, how do you ensure that the economic development goals and needs are being met and considered, thoughtfully along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. And to Krista's point, we sit on many committees together. So that's kind of how we get to contribute. So whether I'm on the committee or one of my managers are on the committee, that's how we get to have our input on that. And of course, the city, as you know, does significant engagement, and so these are the engagements that are going to inform those master plans, and ensuring that it's in line with economic development. We are definitely at the table to bring a different perspective, perhaps, which everybody brings, which is awesome, and that's how we end up with these great plans. So for example, we talk about the cycling trails and the paths. From our perspective, yes, it's a great way for people to move around the city without burning gas. But our perspective as well is it is a tourism attraction. It's an asset to the city to not only enhance our culture of being that Guelphness piece. We're very green and very conscious of that. But other people in surrounding areas want to come and experience trails, whether it's cycling or not. And it can be a tourism, and I should say it is a tourism driver as well. So making sure that we're part of those discussions is pretty easy for us to do in the city of Guelph. Everybody is very open and seeking everybody's input. So yeah, I hope I answered your question there.
Absolutely, thank you.
Good.
So I'm going to skip to a question, I think, related to the ways and opportunities to contribute, because our members at the Chamber are looking to meaningfully give their advice, suggestions, contribute, and certainly not to only be managed as stakeholders as part of what sometimes can feel like a status quo process or a tick box. I want to personally say that I do applaud the many opportunities both of your departments and citywide have provided for public consultations. And I'm glad I'm often invited to the table to be able to represent the voice of our members. That said, the consultations are sometimes subject to criticism regarding the exclusion of, say, some key stakeholders. And sometimes participants feel that there's a bias towards what feels like a predetermined trajectory of a plan. So we hear that true feedback and new ideas are not necessarily always being sought, which, as you both know, can limit innovation and broader community endorsement when we do proceed on a project. I'm curious if either of you have honestly heard those kinds of sentiments before, and if you have anything in mind about what could be different to change people's perceptions or real, the reality of their interpretations of how those consultations have gone for them.
Do you want me to, Krista, would you want me to start? So I guess I've not witnessed that, Shakiba, at all in my 6 months here. So, but what I have witnessed in the engagement process that's gone around the patio project, the temporary patios, I know that engagement was significant, and I've read the good, the bad, and the ugly of that engagement, which is great, and I know that has and will inform the report, and because the importance of putting forward all the information is really being transparent, and ultimately, our senior managers or our leadership team, needs to make decisions based on all the information. And in turn, so does council. Council needs to know all the information. So what I know from my perspective is that that's the intent of how I plan on governing myself and my department, and I'm pretty sure that's the intent of the rest of the city in governing themselves, is that transparent piece. So I don't want to say I'm too new, but I guess I'm a little shocked that might be a perception, and if it is, then how do we change it? I think that there's in my 6 months here, the amount of engagement that's gone on has been pretty significant, just because of the COVID crisis and reaching out to our businesses. And Shakib, I know you were part in some of our engagement and vice versa, and we've worked with some of the other stakeholders like the DGBA, for example, for engagement. So I think there's lots of opportunity, but again, there's always opportunity to make suggestions as to where could we do better engagement.
Yeah, and just maybe on the engagement, certainly I would say that, if we missed you, I'm sorry, and it certainly wasn't deliberate that we missed anyone. We are trying to improve our engagement every day, and we encourage people to be involved because we know the community decisions are important to us. We have heard good things about our engagement too, and we have heard some positive feedback. And I know, Shakiba, we've invited you to a few of our consultations on the growth planning. And I think if you look at who's at that table when you've participated, I don't think it is the standard people who comment all the time on applications. We do have a very diverse cross section of people represented at some of those tables. So it's something we're encouraging and we're trying to do. We can always get better, and we absolutely know that and are working toward that. But engagement is important to us, and whether it's, I've plugged Have Your Say today. Our council members are really good about tweeting out events that are going on as well. So, we'd ask a little bit for the community to keep an eye on those as well. And we'll try to reach out. I think our standard list of stakeholders has been growing over the years, and especially 2020. 2020 was, there was a lot of large events that occurred that made people more aware that we have to consult with a diverse group of people. So we are definitely trying, and we can always improve. But we would encourage people to be involved as well, and to reach out to staff and participate in the projects that are ongoing.
And perhaps that answers the question that I wanted to put out as an olive branch on our part, because I'm sure that the city and your departments might face challenges in working with stakeholders. And I'm wondering, how can the chamber help elevate those relationships that you're hoping to build?
Yeah, and Shakiba, just kind of what we talked about, and if our mayor and our councillor are tweeting out events, maybe we can get the chamber to spread the news as well as some of those things that are happening, especially if it impacts your members. As I'm looking forward with our employment lands and some of the downtown revitalization, there's a lot of opportunities coming up in the next year that we can together all share how to be involved, and I think that's important for everyone. So we've reached out to you several times. We'll continue to reach out to you to participate in our engagement opportunities. And, if you can share those with your members, then the city as a whole will benefit by having more diverse opinions provided on all the different projects that we have ongoing.
That's great. And certainly, before John, I pass it back to you as well, I will say, and if it can help for us to be involved, even closer to the development of the engagement process, please keep that in mind as an opportunity as well, because we could help identify the different ways or stakeholders that may not have even been considered, just based on the interactions and activities that we participate in with our network. So certainly there are opportunities for us to continue to work closely and collaboratively together to ensure that all of those important voices are being heard. John, sorry I cut you off.
No, you didn't at all. That's it just looked like I was going to say something, but now I have the airtime, I'm going to. I think from an engagement perspective as well, it doesn't necessarily have to be aligned with engagement efforts. So for example, I know that we talk somewhat frequently. Shakiba, I know that you have ongoing meetings with Christine Chapman, our manager of economic development. I know that there's regional meetings that we have that involve other service providers that are, in this case, aligned very closely with economic development and tourism. And so those are always points for engagement, both ways, where we can engage with those stakeholders and vice versa in a very collaborative environment. And having said that, I think engagement is an ongoing process, because there's always I don't want to say issues, but there's always something that we can talk about and improve. And so I don't think, from my perspective anyways, my cell phone's public, my email's public, call, phone, text, whatever. I'm happy to engage. And I'm sure, as Krista is, I'm sure I just spoke for you, Krista, sorry. And Krista's cell number is, no.
That's okay.
But you know what, we're public servants. There is no greater privilege anywhere than to be a public servant. And I would say all of us, if not most of us, we're public servants for a reason, because we love doing what we do, which means engaging people. So yeah, I throw that out there, that call anytime.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. And I know that to be true, and we'll continue to work better together as well. So now at the crux of everything, and to wrap up, from the chamber perspective, we hope alongside you, and I know that to be true, that that Guelph can compete, right, as a leading edge community, viewed as a place where things can get done, where applications are dealt with expeditiously, and that we have positive business outcomes where those can be achieved. So first to John, we have ambitious job growth targets that require an open for business mindset. What is your plan, short, medium, long term, for us to achieve this?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the plan is, as I mentioned earlier, we're putting the people in place in order to make sure this happens. So in order to attract business investments, which who they create jobs. We don't create any jobs, right? Economic development officers don't create jobs. We just provide resources and facilitate so businesses can create jobs. So making sure that our team is in place and strategically aligned, and ensuring our competitive advantage is known and celebrated is certainly that effort. As you know, we have some industrial lands, phase 3 coming online, hopefully next year, of the Hamilton Creek Business Park, to attract more employment. So those are really the plans. We have lots of opportunity. Guelph is defined by a finite border, and there is only so much land. And what it allows us to do is to be very, very selective and very specific as to the types of jobs we want to bring into the city of Guelph. And they're not building any more land, right? The world is only so big, and Guelph is in such an envious position geographically that I really have no concerns whatsoever in meeting those targets.
Yes, certainly we're well positioned, right, between a renowned tech hub and the city of Toronto. It does make sense for us to leverage that and to ensure that we're successful, for sure. So
Yeah.
Krista,
watch out, Toronto.
Exactly.
Here we come.
So Krista, on your end, we know business operators hope to have a cost-effective and time-efficient review of their applications that are submitted, with outcomes and decisions at the end of that process based on the merit of their proposals and the recommendations of planning staff, and consistency with adopted policy for the city. You mentioned that there are planning improvements to the planning process going on. I'm just curious if there's any last words you want to leave us with about that process and how you're tracking whether or not they're deemed effective going forward.
Thanks, Shakiba. So I think, in keeping with our strategic plan, we are, in planning and building services, along with all other divisions in the city, really working toward building our future and to help ensure that we have strong, healthy, safe, vibrant communities, and how we build those. So continuous improvement, as we talked about right from the beginning, is part of what we do every day this year. In planning, we'll be looking at the site plan process as well as this development application process to see if we can make some improvements to that, to ensure that our timelines are a little bit quicker and a little bit shorter for the developer, and to make sure we're being as efficient as possible in those processes to help move things along. Our building department is making process improvements as well in how we do Amanda folders and how we set up our building permit software. Building permits are online now, which is fantastic. So that happened in January, which was lucky, I think, or perhaps good timing. But we've been able to move our planning process online as well. So we've got those improvements that happen as well. And we're looking at little things. And I think in March, first planning meeting in March, we're bringing forward a building bylaw that will allow permits to transfer from who originally made the application to the current owner. So we got, there's some inefficiencies that go along with not having that ability to transfer. So we're updating the bylaw to allow that to happen. So There's always going to be little improvements we're making throughout 2021, and my hope is every year going forward. But there's a lot we can do, and we'll just continue to work away at them and bring those improvements forward. The internal building partnerships committee is kind of the push behind that. And as I said from the beginning, it's a cross-functional department. John's group and my group both chair it. So I think there's that kind of highlights the importance of planning and economic development and growing the city and moving things forward. So a lot on the table and a lot on our plates to get done, but really excited about the future of Guelph and how we're growing and what we can do to make it a better experience for the business community, but a great place to live, work, and play going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. What a good way to end this conversation. An excellent note. There is a lot of potential and opportunity. We do want to hear from our members and the community at large on how to continue to be the community that we want to see through and out of this pandemic. Big thank you to both of you for your time today. I'm really grateful for your contributions and looking forward to working closely on an ongoing fashion. Thanks again, Krista and John, for your time and your insights today into your departments and the work that you're doing. A big thank you again to CN Rail for their support in making important policy content like this available to our members.